Hello everybody, it's time for the last bass review of the basses that I currently own. We're going to take a look at this guy. It's a Moonshine Custom Guitars custom build. So let's take a look. Here it is. And this video may be a little bit longer than the other videos. I realized my last one was over my slotted 15-minute time, but this bass has a long story that I'm gonna have to condense down. There's a lot of features to this bass that you don't find in other basses because I had it custom made. So a gentleman that I know, I go to church with, and he is a really gifted, talented luthier as well as a great bass player. So bass players know how to, if you're a luthier and you're a good luthier, but you're also a bass player, you know what makes a good bass. And he does build great basses. However, it was a 3.5-year affair, and once I commissioned the bass to when I got it. I actually chronicled it in a diary, and it kind of reads like a horror novel. I start out really excited about the bass and really wanting, looking forward to getting it, and toward the end, I was just like, I don't care anymore. I don't, So it kind of quelled all the excitement I had about this instrument. It's first class. It's a nice instrument. But honestly, it just brings up a lot of bad memories. I don't play it a lot because of that. It sounds good, but every time I play it and someone asks me, oh man, that's a cool bass, tell me about that bass, I have to tell them the story. And it's, because it's part of the bass. In time, and I mean, I've had it for a little while now, and I'm kind of starting to play it more, but, at one point I even thought about trying to sell it, but it's made for me, and we're going to take a look at some of the features that are just made for me and some of the flaws. It's a custom hand-built instrument, no CNC. This was cut from a block of wood and hand sanded and hand shaped. So there are little idiosyncrasies about the bass that you're not going to find with factory-made basses. First of all, let's take a look up here at the headstock. Sorry, I've just stubbed my toe on something. There's the Moonshine guitar, and that is a fraternity pin. I am a Sigma Phi Epsilon. That experience meant a lot to me, and this is a custom bass. If you're a Sig Ep, you know what that means. You know that the principles of our fraternity are virtue, diligence, and brotherly love, and those are the things that I stand for, so I wanted that on a custom instrument. So the back of the headstock, we'll take a look at that. It has Spurzell tuners. So they are locking tuners, so you don't have to put a lot of winds on the string itself. But this neck, the wood in it is absolutely a work of art. It is 7 pieces in the neck. So you've got one, which is the bird's eye maple, probably pronouncing this wrong, the wingay or whinge, another maple stripe, purple heart, maple, whinge, wingay, however you say it, maple again. And you'll see these woods repeated again throughout the bass. A little bit of interesting kind of fact about the neck heel here. You see it's a 5-bolt design, but those are not wood screws. Those are machine screws, and laid inside the neck. I mean, obviously you can't see, but inside the neck, it's got a slot cut or a place routed out in the neck that has a piece of bell brass in it. So this is actually stuck through, it's in a pocket in the neck. Obviously, the brass is sandwiched between the wood, probably underneath the truss rod. The truss rod went, or the brass plate went in, the truss rod went on, or the opposite way. I don't build basses for a living, so I don't really know how it is in there, but it's in there. And these screws go into that bell brass slab. It does add weight, but it adds weight into the center of the body, so it's not really that bad. Plus the body is chambered. And this is the same wood from the neck and from the top. So I'm gonna flip it over and you'll see the same maple wood that was dyed blue. This is a true oil finish. Here's more, this is a natural binding, so it was masked off when the blue was done. So you see the natural wood, again, the wingay, or however you say it, and then the mahogany on the back. It is also a wingay or wingy, or however you say it, board. The fret markers, the idea of the fret markers, and this is cool. This is their logo at the 12th fret, the little skull. Unfortunately, the light is not going to hit it right, but all of these fret markers, the intention were for them to match the body. So he actually took the wood from the body and then laid it in the fingerboard and then covered it with some epoxy. However, the epoxy is not clear, so it obscures all of the wood underneath, as well as the little skull logo, which has teeth and eyes. I don't know if you can see that or not, because it's, you know, unless you're hitting it with some super bright light, you really can't see it. It shows up on stage okay, but again, that was one of those things where he just tried it and it worked, but it didn't quite work as I would have expected it to work. I would have liked it if he would have just left the wood the natural color and cleared over it, and that way you would have had it pop out instead of a dark color on a dark board. But I gave him a lot of artistic license with the thing because I wanted it to be a custom build. I didn't want it to be like every other bass out there. I wanted him to do some things that were fun for him. You know, little things like this little point on the fingerboard. It looks cool if you could see it because it's a 5-string, so the center, you know, string kind of covers it up. And it makes it a real pain when you go to adjust the neck, because when you move the wrench, it hits on this thing. So then you have to pull it out, move it to this side, and you get another fraction of an inch of adjustment. Not super practical. It's kind of hard to adjust the neck because of it. If you get a wrench long enough to not interfere with it, then it hits you can see where I've chewed off a little bit of the finish because it hits there, trying to not hit that little point. So again, custom basses they don't go through an R&D process. They are what they are. Little things, and I don't even know if it'll show up on camera or not. But maybe it was on this side. Well, it's not showing up on camera. That's how minor it is. But there were a couple of sand throughs where he sanded into the chain. It's right here. Where he sanded into the chambering. I'm totally cool with that. In fact, I love that. I think that's cool because that shows that this instrument was handmade. It was, you know, there were mistakes made. And to me, it's kind of like people. I don't want to be around anyone who's perfect. I like people who have flaws. I have flaws. I'm not perfect. So to me, the flaws give it some personality. These pickups are Nordstrand Zen blades. And when I commissioned the build, these pickups had not been released yet. So Carrie Nordstrand actually suggested these pickups to me and said, oh, they'll be coming out soon. I thought I would be like the first kid on the block to have a pair and a bass. However, it took 3.5 years to build the bass, and I didn't get to be the first kid on the block, or the second, or the third, or the 10th, or the 100th, or the 1,000th kid on the block, because by the time I got my bass, Zen blades had been reviewed everywhere, and everybody already had them. So my excitement for that kind of got tamped a little bit, but you know, they're still good pickups. They have really nice tone. They're hum canceling, which to me, I have a few basses with single coils, but I just like my basses quiet. This is a very interesting bridge. It's a KSM foundation bridge. I used to have a KSM bridge on this bass, but I took it off because this bass doesn't string through the body. So it was, when I pulled the strings out, it was tearing up this part of the bass. This bass, as you can see, we saw it on the back, it strings through the body. So it's not a big deal. It doesn't harm anything when you string through I don't have to string through the back end of the bridge. But anyway, the concept behind this bass is everything is locked down. So when you tighten these two screws, it squeezes all the bridges together And then when you tighten these down, it locks in all of the adjusters. Now again, is that snake oil? Because on this base over here, they say it's better for the saddles not to touch because you don't want to have crosstalk and vibration. And over here, they say everything should touch and it should be one piece. And over here, everything should touch and be one piece. So, snake oil, I don't know. Again, great John East preamp. Same preamp that I have in that bass. John East basses are the absolute best, and I love them. So let's hear what this thing sounds like. All right, so we're back. Different camera, different mic, different sound, different look. Let's take a little closer look at this Moonshine custom guitar, custom build that I had done. We'll get into what it sounds like, but you guys know that I love funky bridges, and we talked a little bit about this bridge in the previous section of the video. The cool thing about this bridge is how the saddle height adjusts. It has a little screw, which you probably can't see. I should have done it with the other camera, but it has a little screw at the front, right under the string, and it actually ramps up the saddle, so it keeps a nice consistent breakover angle on it. The only bad part about that is because it changes the length of the saddle when you raise the saddle height, it messes up your intonation every time you change your saddle height. So you have to re-intonate again. But you know, if you want to be nitpicky, you probably should do that on any bridge. Let's see, what else about this bass is, oh, the neck. So we already mentioned that the neck is made out of 7 pieces, but what you don't know, and I don't, well, you'll just have to take my word for it. The neck is like a baseball bat. And the reason the neck is like a baseball bat, if you can see my hand, when this neck was made, I actually would run my hand up and down it, and I have it set to where the neck sits right here on my fingers, and when I close my hand, I can reach the low B without stretching, without being cramped up. Like on a jazz bass, I'm super cramped up. This is just so natural. And it's that way up and down the neck, just where that neck hits my hand. Like I just put my hand on it and close my hands around it. And it's designed, so it's the most comfortable bass I've ever played because it's made to my hand. The other thing that's interesting about this bass, and it's something that used to be associated with cheap basses, but you see here it has a 0 fret. The reason I had the luthier put a 0 fret on it was because I hate the sound of open strings against a fretted note. So when you play a fretted note, it has a certain timbre to it, and then when you play the open string, it has a different timbre because it's vibrating on, in this case, I think it's a piece of wood because this doesn't really have a nut. It has a string guide. So it doesn't have to be really tough. It doesn't matter if the string eats into it because the only thing it has to do is keep the strings from moving side to side. It doesn't set the height of the strings. The 0 fret does. So the 0 fret is ever so slightly taller than the next fret down. And because it's made out of metal, it's going to take a long time for it to wear. Eventually, it'll have to be like any instrument. If you play it enough, it'll have to be refretted, and that 0 fret would have to be changed and be made. All these made slightly lower than, well, at least this one made slightly lower than the 0 fret. So I happen to like the 0 fret. Again, is it snake oil? I mean, I don't know. Something sounds like it's... This bass has a very hot output. There you go. I guess it's just it's the room or something. I thought something was distorting. But at any rate, I like the 0 fret concept. It makes sense. It used to be a way for cheap guitar manufacturers to be able to just put cheap plastic nuts on and not have to worry about filing them or cutting them. It was a cost-saving maneuver or cost-saving device for them. But I think the principle is sound, and I like the way it sounds, because every note sounds like it's a fretted note. So it's pretty cool in that respect. Again, I showed the tuners on the other video, but you see I only have maybe 1 or 2 wraps around the tuners because I have the locking tuners on it. And that was one of the builder's ideas. I will say that I don't really like these tuning pegs because they're too small. I like the big giant cloverleaf ones, but you can kind of see that if you had those big giant cloverleaf ones, they may be too close together, because this headstock is kind of small. It keeps the neck dive down. These are extremely lightweight aluminum tuners, aluminum body tuners, and you can order all the pieces and parts separate. So you see on the back, the builder wanted to put purple caps to match the Purple Heart. Of course, it doesn't match. It's like a neon purple against the color of the Purple Heart. It doesn't bother me because no one sees it but me. And again, it's part of the artistic license that the builder had. And I told him I want it to be his masterpiece. I wanted him to build a bass that he is proud of, that he put his blood, sweat, and tears in. So that was his idea, to put the purple on there. But each of these little things, the tuning bits themselves, you can get different colors. I could do red, white, and blue if I wanted. I could do different color locks on the back. That people can go crazy. You can go whatever you want. My fraternity colors are purple and red, again, where it brings the purple in. And I haven't thought about doing purple and red, but I really wanted to keep it, instead of looking, I don't want to make the bass look cheesy. I wanted it to be classy. So that's why I wanted all black knobs. I'm not a big fan of chrome. I wanted it to be kind of understated. I would have even liked it if these string trees and tuner pegs were black, but they're not. So, but at any rate, let's hear what it sounds like. Again, this is a John East preamp, and this thing is fantastic. I don't know if you can't see it or not. If I can get up here, I can't move the chair. Whoop. But this preamp is great. So it's everything's backward on this video. But this is volume and balance. And then down here you have tone, you have treble and bass, and then you have mid and mid frequency sweep. And it is a passive and active circuit. So when I push down on, same as the red bass, push down on this guy, it's active. Pull up, it's passive. And in passive mode, these two controls, can't see, these two controls do nothing. But it engages a passive volume and passive pickup select that is separate than the active. So it's a whole different signal path. None of your signal path goes through anything that's active. So here's, the active sound, and then the passive. You can hear a little bit of output drop. I can actually go in and turn the active preamp part down a little bit so it matches. So it sounds pretty good in both active and passive, but on this bass I use the passive mode more as a fail-safe. Another thing that this bass has, I'm going to tear up the neck, that has is this little thing right here is a red LED, and it's 18 volt. There's two batteries in here. When this thing falls below a certain voltage, this light starts blinking, and it starts blinking probably weeks before the batteries need to be changed. In fact, I will often let it blink for a long time before I change the batteries. Like I'll practice and stuff, and I'll change the battery before I go play a gig. Sometimes I keep the old batteries and I put the fresh batteries in and go play the gig, and then come home and take those batteries out. and put the old ones back in and let it blink, because it's only blinking because it's fallen below, 15 volts or whatever it is. I don't actually know. But this preamp will work all the way down to like 7 volts. So, I mean, I could just leave those batteries in it for probably years and just let it blink. But if you want peak performance of your 18 volt preamp, then you replace the batteries when it starts blinking. So that's another Johnny's thing, and it's good. So let's do some sound samples. This is all flat on the bass. I don't have the preamp doing anything. So let me shut off the mic here, and we'll do a little playthrough with the amp emulation. All right, so let me go ahead and change our amp sim to where there is no amp sim. This is bypassing everything and going just, basically it's turned my HX Stomp into a DI, and let's hear what it sounds like with no processing. All right, so that is that. So now you've heard it processed and unprocessed. To make a long story short, when it comes to this bass, it's if I were to commission another bass build, it wouldn't be anything this fancy or this pretty, or it plays great. Obviously, how it sounds is a matter of opinion. I think it sounds great. I love the body shape. I really, really love this bass. It is the best bass that I've ever played, and I wanted it to be that way because it's designed to my hand. The setup on it is really good. I did have to put a little small neck shim in it, but not much, just because I like my action really low. It has banjo frets in it, so very thin fret wire. So everything is really set up to how I want the bass set up, and how I wanted it built. So I really can't complain, but is it one of those things that if I take it to a gig, or I've never done any studio work, but if I took it to a studio and an engineer saw this bass, he sees me pull this out, he's going to go, oh wow, this guy's got this super fancy custom made bass. That happens from what I've been told. If you bring out a P bass or a jazz bass, an engineer goes, oh, okay, cool. He's a player. He's got a P bass or a jazz bass. This is a P bass style body because I like that P bass style body. And this thing is beautiful, and it's an heirloom, and it's a piece of artwork. It's something that I'll keep forever and never sell. But if I were to do it over again, would I rather have taken my money and had a Fender custom shop bass made, or had something made by G&L custom? I don't know. I've had another custom bass made before by Bluesman Vintage Guitar in Spring Hill. John Scott built it, and I liked it. It was a great bass. Was lightweight, and I ended up selling it to Trace Atkins, bass player. It was a great bass, but at the end of the day, paying that much money for a custom instrument, is it worth it? Is it that much better than the other basses on this wall that I either built from parts or bought off the rack? At the end of the day, I think it comes down to what your preference are, what you want, what excites you. That's kind of like the age-old question, is a Cadillac better than a Chevrolet? They both get you where you want to go. But if you want a Cadillac, go buy a Cadillac. They're more luxurious and they're nicer, and certainly will change people's opinion of you when you pull up versus if you roll up in a Chevrolet. They both get you in the same place. So I'm not under any delusions that this bass makes me a better player, that this bass sounds better than any other bass out there. Bass is a hobby of mine. It's a love of mine, and I think there's the old saying that where you spend your money shows where your passions lie. So that's obviously the case with basses. I like them from an artwork standpoint, just how they look. And there are gigs where I play this bass. I play it in church, but I would never take this bass. I won't say never. I would be very unlikely to take this bass to a bar gig or something like that, just because it's one of a kind and I can't fix it if it breaks. And taking it back to the guy who built it, I honestly have to say I would be scared to do that because I may not get it back very quickly. So I would have to find someone else to repair it. So to me, this is just something that I mostly enjoy at home. I take it and play it in church. And when my time comes to leave this earth, all these other basses can be sold, but I've told my daughter, this one is yours. And I don't care if you put it in a case and put it under your bed, but it's a piece of me. It's a piece of what I thought my ideal bass would be. It has a connection to some of my beliefs. So I love it for that respect. But this video is probably very long, so I'll go ahead and end it here. And I appreciate you guys watching all my videos. If you have seen all my videos, maybe you haven't. If you haven't, go back and watch the rest of them. I'm not a professional reviewer. Like I said in the very first video, I have no clue as to what I'm doing, and I'm just doing the best that I can. So thank you guys again for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you have fun out there on gigs and playing. And if you have any questions, hit me up and I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks.